A counterfeit, it's a mimic of a real product. If you think about sneakers or any kind of fashion wear or even money, right? You can see those products side by side and you can't see the difference between the two. When it comes to medication, the same thing applies. They look just like each other. And you can't make that distinction by visually looking at it. Scientists can't even do it. Police officers can't do it. There's a little bit of risk when we talk about merchandise, but there's a very grave risk when we're talking about medications. My name is Joe Bazinko. I'm a senior research chemist with the Drug Enforcement Administration, also known as the DEA. So a counterfeit pill would be one that looks just like a legitimate pill, something you'd get from a pharmacist. We've been analyzing both legitimate and illegitimate pills, or counterfeits, if you will, for decades now. So this is something that's been ongoing. It is now seemingly increasing more in the danger associated with what's contained in those counterfeit pills versus what we've seen in the past. We cannot visually look at a pill and say, oh, that's counterfeit or not. You really don't know until you do the analysis. I can tell you in my 25 years of being a chemist, I have never seen more fentanyl than I'm seeing now. This is not an isolated problem. It is everywhere. Fentanyl has legitimate use in the medical field for the treatment of pain. Illicit fentanyl, that is the fentanyl that we see put into these counterfeit medications, it's manufactured in these dirty labs. There's no great way to measure how much goes into each tablet. It really is reckless. When you're mixing a pill up, you have to mix all the ingredients together, and then you have to put them in the machine, and the machine will punch them out. The problem is with these pills, it's not easy to mix everything evenly. Let's say you had a mortar and pestle, and if I were to put in, say, 10 packets of white sugar, and then say 1 packet of brown sugar, and if you could sit there and grind and mix and grind and mix, you're gonna find there's gonna be hot spots and cold spots in there. An example of a hot spot and a cold spot, you'll see a lot of brown in one area, a lot of white in another area. It wouldn't be uniform, which is to say when it went in to make the pills, that dark spot of brown sugar that was in that would eventually make a very high load on a pill. That pill would have a lot of fentanyl in it. The research suggests that 2 milligrams of fentanyl can cause an overdose. The average pill that we see and analyze here has more than that in it. One pill can very much lead to an overdose. So 2 milligrams is a very small amount. It's literally just a few grains. If you look at a plain sugar packet, and that sugar packet has 1 gram of sugar in it, using the math of 2 milligrams, that sugar packet can kill 500 people if it were fentanyl. I want you to think about what 500 people is. 500 people could be your senior class. 500 people could be half of your school. It could be a part of your town. When I have a fentanyl exhibit brought into the lab, before anything happens at all, I'm gonna put on my protective gear. I'm gonna protect my clothing wearing a laboratory jacket. I'm gonna protect my breathing and my airway using a big heavy mask with filters on it. I'm gonna protect my eyesight so that nothing gets splashed in my eyes. I'm also gonna protect my hands wearing gloves. Even with all of that, we still work in a fume hood, which has vacuum at the back that draws out anything like hazardous vapors or any of the powders. These are just some of the preparation we do when we begin to work with counterfeits, because again, they're unknowns and we prepare for the worst. I've actually had an exposure of fentanyl to where we had a laboratory accident on a fentanyl submission to us. I was rushed to the hospital and I spent the day in the emergency department. So even for those of us that have training, those of us that have the expertise and the equipment working on our side, it's still a danger and still a hazard and can still represent a grave threat to your life. The danger that we see coming from these counterfeit pills is you really don't know what's in them. Fentanyl is a threat that affects everyone in every location, at every age group, and it is not worth the risk. And the fact of the matter is, once you take that tablet, there's no going back. There's no backspace, there's no Control-Alt-Delete. If it didn't come from that pharmacist, it could be counterfeit. It could end your life, impacting all your loved ones and your friends.